The dingy bar in Houston reeked of stale cigarettes and cheap bourbon. Jack Harper, hunched over his glass, his massive 6'7" frame making the bar stool seem comically small beneath him. The television blared in the background, showing highlights from the Pelmorian Wrestling Championships. "You don't follow the rules," shouted the commentator at a disqualified competitor. Jack's blue eyes flickered toward the screen, memories of his own failures surfacing like unwelcome ghosts. 2 years ago, he'd tried to join the Planetary Military Wrestling Federation, a sumo-like organization that had expanded to include fighters from various planets after Earth established interplanetary relations. Despite his overwhelming physical strength, Jack had been rejected. "Lacks discipline," they said. The memory still stung. The broadcast shifted to an advertisement that caught Jack's attention. "The Galactic Intimidation Trials. No physical contact allowed. Just look your opponent in the eye until they back down. Winner advances." The screen showed aliens from various planets engaged in intense staring contests. "Final registration tomorrow at the Warehouse District. Grand prize, 1 million credits. 1 million credits, equivalent to $50,000. Enough to clear his debts. Enough to start over." Jack drained his glass. What did he have to lose? The next morning, nursing a hangover and low expectations, Jack trudged to the registration warehouse. The place was a strange mixture of high-tech equipment and industrial grime. Aliens of various species milled about, some with obvious physical advantages, multiple eyes, reflective pupils, or strange ocular structures Jack had never seen before. "Name?" asked the board registrar, not looking up from the holographic screen. "Jackson Harper." "Species?" "Human." The registrar paused, finally looking up with surprise. "Human. We don't get many of your kind here. You know what this competition is about, right?" Standing there until the other guy looks away seems simple enough. The registrar snorted. "Sure, simple. You're in preliminary round 4, platform 6. Good luck, human." Jack's first opponent was a Hroth assassin, his body covered in bone armor, eyes without normal pupils, just swirling patterns of dark blue on lighter blue. The alien curled his lip when he saw Jack. "A human. Do humans even know how to use their eyes?" he sneered. "Let's see who blinks first." They took their positions on raised platforms facing each other. The rules were simple. Maintain eye contact. No physical contact allowed. First one to look away loses. As the buzzer sounded, Jack felt a strange sensation wash over him. Fear, doubt, a compulsion to look away. Was this some kind of psychic attack? He fought through it, keeping his gaze steady on his opponent's swirling eyes. The Hroth assassin's confidence began to falter as Jack's unwavering blue eyes bore into him. Apparently, the Hroth's unusual eye structure made it difficult for him to control his gaze for extended periods. After 2 intense minutes, the assassin turned away with a growl of frustration. The buzzer sounded again. "Winner, Jackson Harper, Earth." A ripple of surprise ran through the small crowd of spectators. Jack caught whispers. "A human won?" Beginner's luck. The Hroth couldn't use his psychic abilities properly. Jack stepped down from the platform, surprised at his own victory. As he moved toward the exit, planning to return the next day for the second round, a tall woman intercepted him. "Impressive for a first-timer," she said, extending her hand. "Mira Solari, Cosmic Eye journalist." Jack shook her hand cautiously. "Thanks. Just got lucky, I guess." "No such thing in the GIT," Mira replied, her dark eyes sharp and assessing. "Mind if I ask you a few questions? Humans rarely participate in these trials." "No offense, but I'd rather not do interviews." Mira lowered her voice. "I'm not just a journalist. I'm a cybersecurity specialist tracking illegal alien organizations. This competition isn't what it seems." Jack hesitated, then nodded toward a quiet corner. 5 minutes. Once they were alone, Mira pressed a tiny device into his palm. This detects psychic waves. It'll help block opponents from using mental manipulation during the trials. If used at the right moment, you can counteract their abilities. Why help me? Jack asked suspiciously. Because the GIT is controlled by Pelmorians, she explained. They force all Earth competitors to lose in the final rounds. Anyone who gets too far disappears. Before Jack could respond, another figure approached, a broad-shouldered alien with slate-gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Thorek Kaval, the newcomer introduced himself, voice low and gravelly. Former GIT champion from Thraxon. I was banned after exposing cheating. Jack's suspicion deepened. What do you want? Thorek handed Jack a small data chip. Everything is here. Falsified records, bribes, and a black and white image of the Black Coffer, the secret leader of Giat. If you continue competing, you're in danger. So I should just quit? Jack asked. If you quit, the Pelmorians will still eliminate you as a precaution, Mira countered. Your only protection is to stand your ground and go public with the evidence when the time is right. Only then will other powers align with Earth. Jack examined the tiny device and data chip in his palm. The promise of 1 million credits had drawn him in. But now he faced a more complex choice. Walk away and possibly be silenced anyway. Or push forward into certain danger with the slim hope of exposing corruption. I need to think about this, he finally said. Don't take too long, Thorek warned. Your next match is tomorrow. That night, in his cramped apartment, Jack reviewed the data Thorek had provided. Records of fixed matches, communications about ensuring human failures, and disturbing reports of competitors who had retired after challenging the system. The evidence was compelling, if terrifying. He'd entered the competition for money. Now, he was caught in what appeared to be an interplanetary conspiracy. The next morning, Jack met Thorek at an abandoned gymnasium on the outskirts of Houston. The former champion had offered to train him in the art of static eye stance, a technique that could help Jack withstand psychic assaults during competition. Eye dueling isn't just about staring, Thorek explained. It's about controlling your entire body's energy, clearing your mind of distractions, and connecting your consciousness to your vision. Sounds like meditation, Jack commented skeptically. In a way, yes, but with deadly stakes. Thorek positioned himself across from Jack. Now, look into my eyes. Try to maintain your gaze while I attempt to influence your perception. Jack felt a subtle pressure at the edges of his vision, like someone trying to push his eyeballs from their sockets. He instinctively wanted to blink, to look away from Thorek's 4 unnerving eyes. Resist, Thorek commanded. Channel your energy through your eyes. Make them an extension of your will, not just organs of sight. For hours, they practiced. Jack learned to control his breathing, to maintain a relaxed yet focused state, and to recognize the subtle signs of psychic influence. By midday, he was able to withstand Thorek's mild attacks without flinching. You learn quickly for a human, Thorek acknowledged, but your next opponent will be stronger. As if on cue, Mira burst into the gymnasium, looking agitated. 2 Pelmorian agents were asking about you at the competition headquarters. They know you've advanced, and they're not happy. How much time do we have? Thorek asked. Not much. Mira stopped as the gymnasium door crashed open. 2 aliens entered. Tall, slender figures with pale, almost translucent skin and oversized eyes that glowed faintly purple. They wore the insignia of Pelmorian security forces. Jackson Harper, one called out. We'd like a word. Jack tensed, ready for a fight. But Thorek placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. No physical confrontation, the former champion murmured. Use what I taught you. Jack faced the Pelmorians, making direct eye contact with the one who had spoken. He channeled his focus, remembering Thorek's teachings. The Pelmorian's confident expression faltered. "You would be wise to withdraw from the competition," he said, his voice slightly strained. "It would be unfortunate if an accident befell you." "Is that a threat?" Jack asked, maintaining unwavering eye contact. A bead of sweat formed on the Pelmorian's forehead. The glow in his eyes dimmed slightly. "A friendly suggestion. The trials aren't suited for humans." "I'll take my chances," Jack replied, continuing to hold the alien's gaze. After several uncomfortable seconds, the Pelmorian broke eye contact, looking to his partner. "We've delivered our message. Let's go." As they left, Jack released his breath, realizing he'd been holding it. "That," Thoric said with something like pride, "was an eye trap. You reflected his psychic pressure back at him. Well done." "They'll be back," Mira warned. "And not so polite next time." "Then we need to accelerate your training," Thoric decided. "And we need a plan for when you advance." Over the next few days, Jack's training intensified. Using Mira's psychic detection device, he practiced against simulated opponents with varying abilities. Thoric taught him the eye trap technique, a method of capturing an opponent's gaze and emitting a specific vibrational frequency through the pupils that created a feedback loop of psychic energy. Meanwhile, Mira worked on gathering more evidence about the GIT's corruption, preparing for a live broadcast that would expose the truth when Jack advanced far enough to draw significant attention. The day of his second official match arrived. Jack's opponent was a female Hroth assassin who stepped through a gravity-shifting portal onto the platform. Her emerald green eyes blazed with intensity as she focused her consciousness through them. "The Hroth were the first planet to master enhanced visual techniques," murmured an audience member near Jack. As the match began, Jack employed his newly learned skill of apparent avoidance, maintaining mental focus while creating the illusion of almost blinking. Combined with controlled breathing, he created a false sense of security for his opponent. The Hroth woman became increasingly frustrated as her psychic assaults seemed to have no effect. Finally, she blinked, stumbling slightly. The buzzer sounded. "Winner, Jackson Harper, Earth." The crowd's reaction was more pronounced this time, a mixture of surprise, appreciation, and, from some quarters, alarm. Jack caught sight of a Pelmorian official speaking urgently into a communication device. "They're concerned," Thoric said as Jack stepped down from the platform. 2 victories by a human was not in their plan. "I intercepted a message," Mira added, showing Jack her portable scanner. "They're saying you're the most dangerous human they've encountered. They're giving you one final chance." "Meaning?" "Your next opponent will be formidable," Thoric explained. "A planetary qualifier. If you win that, you'll advance to the interplanetary rounds, where humans are never supposed to reach." Jack's third match was against General Igam, a cyborg from the planet Vortenak. Half his body had been replaced with artificial bones, and his eyes contained infrared cameras. This match would take place in Stage 3 conditions, each contestant constrained by a hard band that covered most of the face, leaving only a small opening for the eyes. "The rules are stricter here," Thoric warned as he helped Jack prepare. "You cannot move more than 2 inches forward, and your feet must remain planted. Any movement means disqualification." Jack nodded, adjusting the special glasses Mira had created, designed to filter most laser wavelengths, while enhancing his natural vision. General Igam stepped onto the platform with military precision. "Human," he acknowledged Jack with cold formality. "Your species is known for physical strength, not mental fortitude. This will be brief." As the match began, Jack felt the assault immediately, a combination of psychic pressure and what seemed to be radio transmissions attempting to blur his vision. He closed his eyes momentarily, regulating his breathing, then opened them with renewed power. Using the image defense line technique Thoric had taught him, Jack suppressed the cyborg's radio psychic signals. He gripped the special glasses, using their light reflection properties to maintain his focus. Amid the increasing pressure, Igam's confidence began to waver as his attacks proved ineffective. After 5 grueling minutes, the cyborg general's gaze faltered. Jack had won again. The Vortenac audience members were shocked. "Impossible! He overcame our psychic technology!" As Jack descended from the platform, exhausted but victorious, Thoric pulled him aside. "You've drawn the attention of the Council of Observers, representatives from various planets who monitor the GIT. I've sent data to 3 key figures who might help us. The Turkson ambassador from planet Thraxon has filed a report about the GIT's underhanded violence. He's promised support if you make it to the championship. Representative Cass from Kasori is investigating financial fraud. The GIT accepts bets using Kasori credits with signs of money laundering. Delegate Orivax from Aureus controls media channels. She's concerned about mind control techniques being used on audiences." "So we have allies?" Jack asked hopefully. "Potential allies," Mira corrected. "They need more proof before openly opposing the Pelmorians." "And that proof comes when I keep winning," Jack concluded. His next opponent was Eye Jumper, Selena, a formidable Pelmorian duelist with laser prism lenses implanted in her eyes that could emit beams, causing opponents to squint involuntarily. "Human," she addressed Jack as they took their positions. "You are no match for me. My eyes will burn through your resolve." Selena employed a flashing technique, rapidly changing the color and intensity of her gaze between blue, purple, and red. Most unprepared duelists would immediately experience discomfort and look away. Jack wore Mira's special glasses, which filtered most of the laser wavelengths. He remembered Thoric's advice. The eyes are the mind. When you impact your opponent's mind, light becomes irrelevant. He implemented the visual dance technique, controlling his blinking rate to regulate pressure, then opening his eyes wide at strategic moments. This forced Selena to step back in alarm as the laser beams reflected back through her own prism lenses, temporarily blinding her. The buzzer sounded. Jack had won again. Selena slumped in defeat. Multiple Pelmorian spectators shouted in outrage, "Remove this human!" Almost immediately, a message appeared on Jack's device. One opponent remains before the planetary final. Champion GR, Grarok. Undefeated GIT champion for 10 consecutive years. Jack stood in the center of the arena, feeling his pulse pound. The lights flickered, and the crowd roared. He understood now that he represented not just himself, but humanity's honor in the interplanetary arena. GR, Jack's final opponent before the planetary championship, was a colossal Pelmorian standing nearly 10 feet tall. His 3-fingered hands were massive, his eyes a mysterious purple, and his body covered in wave-dampening armor. He appeared with imposing presence, his expression cold and calculated. "Today, I will bury the pride and eyes of humanity," GR declared. "No one has ever made me avert my gaze." Jack waited on his platform, his throat dry. He remembered Thoric's words. "Don't let yourself be suppressed. When their eyes meet yours, send back an entire world." Mira gave Jack a pill to enhance his blinking reflexes and temporarily reduce psychic neural tremors. Jack sat straight, touching the X-shaped soul gem on his chest, a keepsake from his father, a former visual scholar. Earth pride swelled within him. As the planetary final began, the arena lights dimmed, and the audience fell silent in anticipation. The match rules were stricter than ever. No physical force or sound support, only eye restraint and silent space. Psychic wave detectors were attached to both contestants to prevent cheating. GR opened with a heart-light psychic wave, a slicing sensation that made Jack feel as though needles were piercing his eyeballs. Most contestants would have collapsed immediately. Jack half closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and forced his consciousness into the center of his pupils, reflecting GR's psychic force back into the champion's own attack. The audience gasped as a purple light flashed from GR's eyes, then extinguished as he struggled to maintain his gaze. The tense scene continued. GR slumped, his eyes growing unfocused, finally unable to keep them open any longer. The planetary final ended in a moment of shock. No one believed a human could defeat the Pelmorian champion. The judging panel was stunned, and murmurs spread through the Interplanetary Alliance representatives. Many civilizations were witnessing, for the first time, an Earthling who could return the world through his eyes. On the massive arena screens, evidence collected by Thorek and Mira began playing. Contracts showing bribes to GIT officials, hidden camera footage of the Black Coffer, the GIT chairman, funneling credits into secret Pelmorian accounts. An audio recording played. If any Earthling reaches the finals, use psychic manipulation to make them lose as quickly as possible. Chaos erupted in the stands. Planetary delegates shouted accusations, grabbing microphones from the Black Coffer. Bettors who had placed wagers at 10,000.1 odds demanded refunds. The Black Coffer was forced onto the stage, his face pale, with no way to defend himself. Eventually, he was detained by interplanetary officials right there on the spot. GR opened his eyes weakly, offering a bitter smile to Jack. "You, human, truly are a monster." Jack extended his hand. "I'm just someone who isn't afraid to look straight at myself. Wake up and remember, your greatest opponent is always yourself." GR grasped Jack's hand, bowing his head in respect. "Earth will be remembered." Over 100,000 interplanetary spectators rose to their feet, chanting freedom of vision throughout the arena. Jack collapsed, his hands cold, but tears glistening in his eyes. By overcoming his internal fear, he had reclaimed the gaze for all humanity. The immediate aftermath of Jack's victory was seismic. The Interplanetary League immediately revoked Pelmoria's management rights over the GIT, transferring control to an independent evaluation council. Jack received the Interspecies I Dual Champion crown, becoming humanity's first interplanetary champion in the discipline. Thorek was reinstated to the GIT and returned to Thraxon, his reputation restored. Mira became editor-in-chief of the Universal Justice Chronicles, specializing in correcting interplanetary fraud activities. Back on Earth, Jack was awarded the title Master of Vision in Houston. He established a visual skills training academy called Independent Eyes, teaching both children and adults how to control their minds when looking directly at the truth. Jack reconnected with his estranged brother, who had distanced himself when Jack went to Pelmoria. They reopened the old bar, transforming it into Vision Cafe, a place displaying photos of GIT champions and hosting sharing sessions about how a gaze changed us. Mira Solari became famous for her series, The Human Gaze, nominated for the Interplanetary Pulitzer Prize. She pioneered the establishment of the Transvisual Journalism Institute to train reporters to counter alien mind control technologies. Thorek Kaval was appointed as Thraxon ambassador to the Planetary Alliance. Thanks to the GIT event, Thraxon culture, combining martial arts and meditation, spread throughout the universe. The next year's GIT competition would be hosted on Earth. Interplanetary broadcasts announced that all visual experts, psychics, and journalists were eagerly anticipating the event. Jack stood looking at the Houston horizon. "They once thought nothing could intimidate them except weapons," he mused. "But now we've proven that the gaze and will are the true power." The story ended with Jack slowly closing his eyes, smiling slightly as he heard the children at his academy shouting, "We see freedom." 6 months after his victory, Jack's Independent Eyes Academy had grown from a small training facility in a converted warehouse to a respected institution with branches opening in major cities across Earth. Students from various planets began seeking his teachings, curious about the human technique that had defeated the supposedly invincible Pelmorian champions. On a cloudy Tuesday afternoon, Jack was demonstrating the mental barrier technique to a class of 20 students, a diverse group that included humans, 3 Thraxans, a young Vortnak, and even a hesitant Hroth. "The key is not to force your gaze," Jack explained, his voice calm and measured. "Instead, allow your consciousness to flow naturally through your eyes. Think of them as windows, not weapons." The students mirrored his stance, focusing on maintaining eye contact with training dummies equipped with psychic emitters. "Remember," Jack continued, "in the real world, your opponent is trying to break into your mind through your eyes. Your job isn't to attack. It's to create a fortress they cannot breach." As the class practiced, Mira entered the training hall, her expression serious. She gestured for Jack to join her in the hallway. "The Interplanetary Council voted unanimously," she said, once they were alone. "The GIT finals will be held in Houston next month, as planned, but with a twist. They want you to officiate rather than compete." Jack frowned. "I'm not a politician or diplomat." "No, but you're a symbol now. The human who stood against corruption and won." Mira handed him a data tablet. "The complete restructuring of the GIT rulebook. They want your input." Jack scanned the document, noting the numerous changes. Independent judges from multiple planets, psychic dampening fields to prevent manipulation, transparency requirements for all participants and organizers. "This is impressive," he admitted. "It's happening because of you," Mira said. "But there's something else." She lowered her voice. "Intelligence reports suggest some Pelmorian extremists aren't happy about losing control of the GIT. They're calling for a return to traditional values, meaning their dominance." "Threats?" "Nothing specific yet. But be careful." She touched his arm briefly. "Your academy is becoming too important to risk." After Mira left, Jack returned to his class, watching his students with renewed perspective. What had begun as a desperate grab for prize money had evolved into something far more significant, a movement for transparency and fairness across planetary boundaries. That evening, as Jack locked up the academy, he noticed a figure waiting in the shadows of the parking lot, his muscles tensed, ready for confrontation. "Peace, Earth Champion," came a familiar voice. GR stepped into the light, his massive frame unmistakable, even without his competition armor. "I come alone, and unarmed." Jack relaxed slightly, but remained cautious. "What brings the former champion to my doorstep?" "Warning and respect." GR moved closer, his purple eyes somber. "The conservative faction on Pelmoria sees you as a threat to centuries of tradition. I've renounced my former ties, but my people still speak to me. There are those who would rather see the GIT destroyed than reformed." "And where do you stand?" Jack asked. GR was silent for a moment. "I stand where the truth is. My defeat was illuminating. It forced me to question everything I had been taught about human inferiority." He extended one massive 3-fingered hand. "I wish to learn your techniques, if you will teach me." Jack stared in disbelief. "You want to become my student?" "I want to become an ally," GR corrected. "What you started goes beyond competition. It's about breaking cycles of dominance that have corrupted my people for generations." After a moment's hesitation, Jack shook the alien's hand. "Classes start at 7. Don't be late." The news that GR, the legendary Pelmorian champion, had joined Jack's academy spread quickly. It brought more attention, both welcome and unwelcome. Enrollment requests flooded in, while security concerns multiplied. Thorek, now serving as both Thraxan ambassador and advisor to the reformed GIT, arranged for additional protection around the academy. "Your work has become too important to risk," he explained during a secure communication. "The techniques you're teaching are more than combat skills. They're tools for interspecies understanding." As the date of the Houston GIT finals approached, The city transformed. Delegates from dozens of planets arrived, bringing with them cultural exhibitions, technological demonstrations, and media coverage that turned the event into something more akin to an Olympic Games than a simple competition. Jack found himself increasingly pulled into diplomatic functions, his presence requested at receptions and planning meetings. He attended reluctantly, preferring the straightforward environment of his academy to the complex world of interplanetary politics. At one such reception, hosted by the Earth Alliance representative, Jack found himself cornered by a group of corporate executives interested in merchandising opportunities related to his techniques. "Imagine it," enthused one sleek businessman. "Home training kits, virtual reality programs, licensed academies across the solar system. Your methods could be a billion-credit industry." Before Jack could respond, Mira appeared at his side. "I believe the champion has an appointment," she said smoothly, leading him away. "Thanks for the rescue," Jack muttered as they escaped to a balcony overlooking the Houston skyline. "I'm not cut out for this." "Part of being a champion," Mira replied with a small smile. "Everyone wants a piece of the vision." Jack gazed out at the city lights. "When I entered that warehouse 6 months ago, all I wanted was to clear my debts. Now I'm caught in an interplanetary movement I barely understand." "Do you regret it?" Mira asked quietly. Jack considered the question. "No," he finally said. "But I worry about what comes next. The reformed GIT is just the beginning. There are other competitions, other systems rigged against Earth and smaller planets. The Pelmorians controlled the GIT for centuries. What else do they control that we don't know about?" Mira's expression grew serious. "That's why your academy matters. You're not just teaching fighting techniques. You're teaching people to see clearly, to recognize manipulation. That's more dangerous to corrupt systems than any physical weapon." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from Mira's communication device. She checked it, her face paling. "What is it?" Jack asked. "Security breach at the academy. The alarm was triggered 5 minutes ago." They rushed back to the academy to find local authorities already on scene. The building appeared intact from the outside, but the security doors had been forced open. "Nothing was stolen," reported the officer in charge. "But every training room was accessed. The intruders seemed to be looking for something specific." Jack moved through the academy, assessing the damage. Training equipment had been moved, but not destroyed. Student records had been accessed. In his private office, the secure terminal where he stored his teaching materials had been tampered with. "They were after your techniques," Mira concluded as they surveyed the office. "Someone wants to know exactly how you defeated GR." "But that makes no sense," Jack argued. "I've been teaching those techniques openly for months. GR himself is learning them now." Mira's eyes narrowed in thought. "Unless they're not interested in learning, but in countering, creating an anti-technique specifically designed to defeat your methods." The implications were disturbing. If someone could develop a countermeasure to the eye trap and other techniques Jack had pioneered, it could undermine not just his teaching, but the reformed GIT itself. The next morning, Jack called an emergency meeting with Thoric, Mira, and GR. They gathered in a secure room at the Earth Alliance headquarters, away from potential surveillance. "The timing is suspicious," Thoric noted, after hearing about the break-in. 1 week before the finals, when all attention will be on Houston." GR's expression was grim. "There are factions on Pelmoria who would go to any lengths to restore the old order. If they cannot control the GIT, they will seek to discredit it. And you, Jack." "How?" Jack asked. "The rules have been changed. Independent judges are in place." "By defeating your techniques publicly," Mira suggested. "Imagine if a contestant using the Harper method were to lose dramatically in the finals. It would undermine confidence in the reforms." "Or worse," GR added. "They could use a corrupted version of your techniques to harm competitors. The blame would fall on your teaching." Jack paced the room, considering their options. Then we need to be ready. Thoric, can you enhance security for the finals? Not just physical security, but psychic screening as well. Already in progress, Thoric confirmed. But it won't be perfect. The Pelmorian conservative faction has resources we can only guess at. Mira, what about media coverage? If something does go wrong, we need to control the narrative. I've arranged for independent broadcasts through the Universal Justice Chronicles, she replied. No single entity will control what the public sees. Jack turned to GR. And you? I need to know if there are any weaknesses in my techniques that a Pelmorian expert might exploit. GR nodded solemnly. I will analyze every method from a Pelmorian perspective. If there are vulnerabilities, we will find them. As the meeting concluded, Jack felt a strange mixture of dread and determination. The GIT had evolved from a simple competition into a battleground for interplanetary relations, with his teachings at the center of the conflict. In the days leading up to the finals, Jack focused on strengthening his students against potential new threats. He developed countermeasures to his own techniques, reasoning that the best defense was to understand how his methods might be turned against him. GR proved invaluable, demonstrating subtle variations that Pelmorian duelists might employ. They will attempt to use your reflection techniques against you, he explained during one intense training session. By creating a false reflection pattern that appears to follow your method, but contains a psychic trap. Jack worked with his advanced students to recognize and neutralize these traps, developing what he called the double mirror defense, a technique that could distinguish genuine eye contact from manipulated reflection. The night before the finals, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat on the roof of his apartment building, gazing at the stars and thinking about how far he had come. From a failed wrestler drowning in debt to the founder of a movement that was reshaping interplanetary relations. A soft footstep alerted him to someone's presence. He turned to see Mira, holding 2 cups of steaming liquid. "Thought you might be up here," she said, offering him one of the cups. Thraxin, calming tea. Thoric recommended it. Jack accepted the drink gratefully. "Thanks. Too much on my mind to sleep." Mira settled beside him. "Having second thoughts about tomorrow?" "No," Jack said after a moment. "Just wondering if we've done enough. If I've taught enough." "You've started something important," Mira said. "Whatever happens tomorrow, that won't change." Jack sipped the tea, letting its warm, slightly bitter flavor ground him in the present moment. "When this is over, I want to expand the Academy's focus, beyond competition techniques. I mean, there's something more fundamental about the way we see each other, across species, across worlds. The universal gaze," Mira mused, "seeing past differences to common truth." "Exactly." Jack turned to her, struck by how perfectly she had articulated his thoughts. "That's what frightens the conservative Pelmorians most, I think. Not losing control of a competition, but losing control of the narrative. If people learn to see clearly, manipulation becomes impossible." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the city lights below and the stars above. Tomorrow would bring challenges, perhaps dangers, but in this moment, Jack felt a profound sense of purpose. Whatever came next, he would face it with open eyes. The Houston Interplanetary Arena gleamed in the morning sunlight, its crystalline dome reflecting the sky. Designed specifically for the reformed GIT finals, the structure incorporated technology from a dozen worlds: Thraxin acoustic dampeners, Vortenac psychic shields, Kasori transparency glass that allowed spectators to see the subtle energy exchanges during eye duels. Jack stood at the center of the competition floor, surveying the preparations. As chief adjudicator, he would oversee the matches, but not participate directly. 24 finalists from 18 planets would compete today, including 3 humans, students from his academy who had qualified through the preliminary rounds. Nervous? Asked Thoric, joining him on the floor. Concerned, Jack corrected. Everything looks perfect, which makes me suspicious. Security has screened every participant, official, and piece of equipment, Thoric assured him. If the Pelmorian faction attempts anything, we'll catch it. Unless what they're planning isn't in the arena at all, Jack mused. Before Thoric could respond, a commotion erupted at the official's entrance. Jack turned to see GR rushing toward them, his expression urgent. We have a problem, the former champion announced. The Pelmorian contestants have withdrawn, all 3 of them. They claim the competition is biased against their natural abilities. That's absurd, Thoric protested. The new rules simply prevent psychic manipulation. It's a pretext, GR explained. They're holding their own traditional Jiet across the city. Broadcast begins in 1 hour, directly competing with our opening ceremony. Jack felt a chill of realization. They're not trying to undermine our competition. They're creating an alternative, one they control. With the Pelmorian media machine behind it, Mira added, joining the conversation. They'll present it as the authentic tradition versus our corrupted version. Can we stop it? Jack asked. Mira shook her head. Not legally. They're operating on private property with private funding. Jack considered their options. The reformed GIT represented months of work, diplomatic negotiations, and the hopes of many planets for a fair competition. To have it undermined by a splinter event would be a significant setback. We proceed as planned, he decided. Our competition stands on its merits. Mira, make sure our broadcast reaches as many worlds as possible. Thoric, can you reach out to the neutral planets who haven't committed representatives? We need their participation more than ever. And me? GR asked. Jack met the former champion's gaze. I need you to go to the Pelmorian event. As a spy? GR seemed surprised. As a bridge, Jack clarified. You're respected among traditional Pelmorians, but you've embraced reform. Your presence there sends a message that we're not enemies. We're evolving together. GR nodded slowly, understanding the strategy. I will represent the middle path. As the others departed to implement the plan, Jack took a moment to center himself. The challenge had shifted from ensuring a fair competition to something more fundamental, establishing the legitimacy of a new vision for interplanetary relations. The opening ceremony began with a display of visual arts from participating planets, a kaleidoscope of light, color, and perspective that emphasized the theme of seeing beyond boundaries. Jack delivered a brief address, emphasizing that the reformed GIT wasn't a rejection of tradition, but its natural evolution. True vision isn't about domination, he told the assembled competitors and spectators. It's about clarity, seeing others as they are, not as we fear them to be or wish them to be. As the first matches began, Jack received updates from GR about the rival event. The traditional GIT had attracted a significant audience, mostly Pelmorians and their allies, but the competition itself was proving disappointingly one-sided, with Pelmorian contestants dominating through barely disguised psychic manipulation. They've missed the point, GR reported via secure channel. Without fair competition, there's no meaning to victory. Even some Pelmorian spectators are beginning to see it. The contrast between the two events grew more pronounced as the day progressed. In the reformed GIT, matches were genuinely unpredictable, with winners emerging from diverse planets and species. The transparent judging system allowed spectators to understand exactly how victories were determined. By mid-afternoon, viewership numbers showed a clear trend. Audiences were switching from the Pelmorian broadcast to the reformed GIT. The authentic competition, where victory depended on skill rather than manipulation, proved more compelling than the staged dominance at the traditional event. The semifinals featured an unexpected matchup, a young Hroth duelist against one of Jack's human students, Eliza Chen. The Hroth had previously been a vocal critic of the reforms, but had agreed to participate as a gesture of interplanetary cooperation. Their match became the defining moment of the competition. For 6 intense minutes, they maintained perfect eye contact, neither attempting psychic manipulation, but instead demonstrating extraordinary mental discipline. When the Hroth finally conceded, it was with visible respect. "I see now," the Hroth told Eliza as they left the platform, loud enough for nearby microphones to capture. "This is how it should be." The moment spread across interplanetary networks, a perfect encapsulation of what the reformed GIT represented: fair competition based on skill and respect. As the final match approached, Eliza facing a Thraxan competitor, Jack received an urgent message from GR. Returning immediately. Situation changing. Minutes later, GR arrived with unexpected companions, a delegation of young Pelmorians who had abandoned the traditional competition. "We wish to observe a true contest," their spokesperson explained to Jack. "Many of us have grown dissatisfied with the old ways. Winning means nothing if the outcome is predetermined." Jack welcomed them personally, arranging seating in the VIP section. Their presence, reported immediately by attending media, signaled a potential shift in Pelmorian culture, at least among the younger generation. The final match lived up to expectations, with Eliza narrowly defeating the Thraxan competitor in what observers called the purest display of visual discipline ever witnessed. When Jack presented her with the championship trophy, the arena erupted in applause that transcended planetary boundaries. In his closing address, Jack acknowledged both the success of the competition and the challenges that remained. "Today, we've shown that seeing clearly isn't just a technique for competition. It's a foundation for understanding across worlds. The eye that seeks truth rather than dominance is the eye that truly sees." As the arena emptied and the technical teams began dismantling equipment, Jack found himself approached by the young Pelmorian delegation. "We want to learn," their spokesperson said simply. "Not just the techniques, but the philosophy behind them." Jack looked to GR, who nodded encouragingly. "My academy's doors are open to all who seek to see clearly," Jack told them. "We begin again tomorrow." Later that night, Jack, Mira, Thorek, and GR gathered at the Vision Cafe to celebrate. The modest establishment was packed with competitors, officials, and media representatives from across the galaxy, creating an atmosphere of genuine camaraderie. To the reformed GIT, Thorek proposed a toast. "May it be the first of many institutions to embrace transparency." "And to unexpected allies," Jack added, nodding toward GR and the young Pelmorians who had joined their celebration. As conversations flowed around him, Jack found a moment of quiet reflection. 6 months ago, he had been a failed wrestler looking for quick money. Now he stood at the center of an interplanetary movement for fairness and transparency. Mira joined him at his corner table. "Thinking deep thoughts, champion?" Jack smiled. "Wondering what comes next. We've reformed one competition, but there are countless others. The Pelmorian conservatives won't give up their power easily." "No," Mira agreed. "But they've lost something important today. The exclusive right to define what it means to see. That's the real victory." GR approached their table, respectfully waiting to be acknowledged before speaking. "I've been authorized to convey a message from moderate factions on Pelmoria. They wish to discuss possible reconciliation between the traditional and reformed approaches to visual competition." "A diplomatic opening," Mira observed. "More than that," GR continued. "An opportunity to bring Pelmoria fully into the reform system, rather than maintaining parallel traditions." Jack considered the implications. "It won't be easy. Centuries of cultural practice don't change overnight." "But they do change," Thorek interjected, joining the conversation. "When I was banned from the GIT for exposing corruption, I thought Pelmoria would never change. Now I see the possibility." Jack looked around the cafe, at the diverse beings from across the galaxy engaged in animated conversation. What had begun as a desperate bid for prize money had evolved into something far more significant. A movement toward authentic seeing, across planetary boundaries. "Tell them we're willing to talk," Jack told GR. "True vision requires looking at all perspectives, even those we initially disagree with." As the celebration continued around them, Jack felt a profound sense of purpose. The journey that had begun in a dingy bar watching Pelmorian wrestling had led him to a place he could never have imagined, at the center of an interplanetary movement for transparency and genuine connection. The path forward would not be easy. Entrenched powers rarely surrendered without resistance, and the conservative Pelmorian faction would undoubtedly find new ways to reassert control. But something fundamental had shifted in the interplanetary community's understanding of what it meant to truly see one another. Jack caught Mira's eye across the table, and she raised her glass in a private toast. "Two eyes that see clearly," she murmured. "And to the courage to look deeply," Jack replied, completing the sentiment that had become the unofficial motto of his academy. As the night deepened and stars shone over Houston, Jack Harper, once a failed wrestler, now a champion of interplanetary understanding, allowed himself to believe that the universe might indeed be learning to see with new eyes. And in that vision lay the hope for all worlds.